Squatchin Holler. Please like and subscribe.
And hit that bell.
Oh, that was my fault.
Oh, okay.
There
Let's
we go.
make sure
We
it wasn't me.
got that. You again. How you doing? Can you hear
Can
me
you
now?
hear me now?
I can hear you. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Now
Can you
we're
hear
back
me?
up in order.
Good. All right,
Yes, sir.
man. Y'all, this is the first show back since surgery, and I forgot what I was doing. So we're
Yeah,
not
and
going
I'm
to take
running
much
off of a
time.
completely different rig too, so I'm in the same boat. Technology's been a lot of fun, ain't it, Roger?
It is, and I'm not that smart with it. So y'all, I'm excited to bring this next guest on. I couldn't believe it when he said yes, and the reason is because a lot of us do similar things that he's doing and what he's involved in, but they've got probably one of the most unique places in the world, actually.
Definitely.
And things that they're learning and that we all can learn from is pretty amazing. So we got Shane Corson backstage, and we'll bring him in. Shane, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Roger and Amanda. Thanks for having me. And man, that was quite the intro. I think you're making my head swell here.
No, well, if you think about it, I've had plenty of time, and I've seen you before in your group, but I had time to really just watch and listen to everything. And to a lot of us, that I kind of went the same route as a lot of other people, from seeing one and then things happening years later, always wondering about it. We didn't have much, over on the West Coast. Y'all have people that's been researching this for a long time. Over here is not so much. And with technology, we can communicate now pretty quickly and spread information. And the quickest way to learn is to be with people who know more than you do. And you guys, without giving you a big head, I like the way y'all do things, because there are several comments that was made. Your sound guy, I'm sorry, I'm bad with names, but he made a comment that's like, "Hey, I'm just collecting all this evidence so that somebody smarter than me can maybe figure things out." And that's the way a lot of us feel. I've had things happen, and I finally started getting recorders and stuff to have with us, just so we can share with somebody that knows. And
Yeah, I picked up on that same comment as well. I actually watched your the one with small town monsters that your project was a part of, and yeah, your sound guy made that comment, and it really did pick up with exactly what Roger said. Because yeah, if picking up that information and that knowledge and having that data out there for everybody to look at is a huge thing in this line of work, I guess, if you want to call it that.
yeah. And I mean, I watched some of your interviews, and they kind of go the same way. You talk about being from Scotland and Nessie, and kind of piquing your interest. I was the same way in school. We had the books and whatever. So I've always been curious. With y'all, with Shane, I'm gonna let him talk, I promise. But with Shane, there's so much going on that we could sit down around a fire for a week and talk about, and I'm sure there's stuff we don't know. But I guess the one thing, I guess I know how you got started, And everybody, when we get done here, go just Google Shane's name or go on YouTube, and there's Small Town Monsters. There's tons of videos. There's tons of people that ask them all these questions, and go, get to know him a little better. But I want to start out with this amazing spot. How did it fall into your lap with the Olympic project?
Yeah. Real quick, I want to say one thing is that I surround myself with smarter people than myself, and that's
Yes,
the key to getting anywhere. And our audio individuals, we have Chris Spencer, who was on the Small Town Monsters, and also David Ellis. And they're both just audio gurus. I'm pretty good with audio. Those guys are a lot better. So surrounding yourself with a good cast, smart people, it helps. It helps big time. And I'm very happy and proud to work with those guys and the other guys and gals of the Olympic Project. I'm very blessed that way, I'll tell you. But
how many members are in the Olympic Project now?
So we have roughly about 30.
Nice.
But we only have maybe 5 really active members. Kind of, I call it our core group.
Right.
Yes, sir.
So, but we have other individuals that are kind of loosely associated with the Olympic Project. And so, but about 5 really, really active members. And so that's kind of what we got going on. But Roger, to answer your question, so the area, so we work in a couple of areas, Oregon and Washington out here, and we have a couple of key areas. We don't really ambulance chase,
Right.
that was like kind of like the old days. We said, here's a report, go over there, here's a report.
Right.
And we do that occasionally, but we like to stick to 2 to 3 core areas and study the sound out of that area and just maintain, observe year after year after year to build, so we can understand the area, the animals in the area, the weather patterns, the terrain. And so that's kind of our angle there. And within the hopes of building up patterns of predictability in these areas. And so when something happens, it sticks out like a sore thumb.
Right.
And so, yeah.
That's another thing that I loved, because you can ambulance chase, as you call it, but when you get to know a piece of property like the back of your hand, and this is going to sound crazy, but like every bush, you can see it when you come back, it's grown, they're here, and this is new. And when something's changed, it also helps, just in that one that Amanda referred to, when you spot the track, the one you use the LiDAR 3D thing on and whatever, when you see something out of place, and I've had a little experience with that with a hunting spot. So that's what I really like is how y'all focus, and you're gathering all this information, and you're actually learning and giving yourself a better chance, right? So I love that.
Yeah. So this I'll say the main area, what we call the nest area. That's our nest study area. To backtrack a little bit more. So we have the Olympic Project has a piece of property up in Western Washington in the Olympics back in, I think it was about 2008, before I was a part of the Olympic Project. Derek Randalls, the co-founder of the Olympic Project, was driving on the 101 and passed this piece of property that was for sale. And he knew of 3 roadside crossings, one directly across that property and a couple more just down the road. So there was multiple Sasquatch reportedly seen crossing this general area. And when that property came up for sale, one of our old benefactors, no longer a benefactor, a good friend though, Wally Hersham and Derek Randalls went in and purchased this property. And so it's been kind of our hub, our base camp, so to speak, for, since about 2008. And we do a lot of stuff just out of this property, and it's the backdrop's amazing. We got beautiful lakes and rivers and mountains, and with the nest area, which isn't relatively too far away from there, it's on the east side of the Olympic Mountains. That property that we've been very, again, blessed with, because we have keys to lock gates that, it's not just anybody can get in there other than timber employees, but a timber surveyor came across these ground nests, eventually got a hold of Derek Randall's, the party that eventually went out there and viewed all these nests. They were enthralled, amazed, and gave us a gate key to private timberland and said, hey, there's something going on here. Maybe you guys can figure it out. And so that's how we came across that property. And it's relatively not too far away from our main base camp hub area up there in the Olympics.
That's really cool.
It is. I mean, yeah, because basically, the other way, you're just like throwing darts at a dartboard. Now you have a target area that you can do what you're doing.
Yes.
And because we have a limited area, couple areas here, it's things have come to light. One thing y'all said about the more active months, it's the same here. And during the middle of the summer, it's so hot here, even at night, muggy. It's so muggy you can almost swim through the air. We have like nothing happen hardly from June, July, and August. But then after that, I believe the most active, crazy stuff we've had happen has been middle of February into March. And when you hear stuff like that that's going on in other places, it kind of like, okay, just make that note to, But yeah, wow. That's
Yeah. I mean, that's what's, I think, key about being in certain areas is learning that area so much that, like I said, when something happens, it's obvious to yourself. And knowing, if you spend enough time in one area, you're going to know, okay, things are maybe going on in these months and not so much these months. But if you're jumping around, you're not going to really get the full picture. And maybe you miss a month and you're like, well, maybe something happened, and one of the things I love that we do that Chris Spencer of the Olymp Project really took upon himself is to do a lot of the audio work. And so we place long-term, he calls them LDRs, long duration recorders, out in these areas. And like I tell a lot of people, they're the least intrusive piece of equipment you can put out there. Also, you're not there, so you're not present. But that audio we record every night, every single night, years on end, and go back and review that audio. But it'll tell you what's going on in those areas when you can't be there or can't. So, there's lots of facets to this research.
But I know we had when I first started this, it hadn't been too long ago, Miss Amy Boo came on. And correct me if I'm wrong, I believe she was there one day when I think some primatologists went to study some of the nests.
Correct. Yeah.
Came back out and they were like, she said they were like smiling, and they were shocked that didn't they say that it definitely was primate nest? Is that right?
Yeah, they were zookeepers that worked directly with bonobos and gorillas and chimpanzees and whatnot, and they had a lot of experience working with them and watching them build nests. And when we invited these, and they're good friends of Amy, good friends of mine now, but they were good friends of Amy Boo's, part of her Project Zoo book, and they came out, they flew out to Washington, and we hiked them into this area, and they were both blown away. They could see instantly the similarities between these nests and the great apes that they were working with. They were very similar. And one of the female zookeepers that was there, she had mentioned that she could see characteristics in the nest that, she's like, okay, this chimpanzee I work with, that's very reminiscent of what's down there. She told me, and kind of jokingly, that typical men or male species, right? We make a bed sometimes. We'll just throw the covers on and call it good. Well, women tend to be a lot more neat and tidy and more, and so there was certain nests that just seemed to be more female oriented, like they're way better put together.
Well, I mean, that's good.
People are meant for the long term instead of
right. Yeah,
just something quick and thrown together temporarily.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the most important part of this, is that what the work you guys are doing, even though y'all play it down a little bit, it brings those people in that's going to help further this and get other people interested, because I could have two in the backyard and hang out with them every day, but if I don't have proof, or if I come forward, people can say it's fake. But if you have the scientists, when they get on board, it gives it more credibility. And I think the more, I guess I say all the time, I'm not trying to prove anything, because I know because of what happened to me. But I guess we get into past the point where it's like, what are they? What do they do? I love knowing. It puts all these questions in my mind, and it drives me crazy sometimes. But
I understand that.
Yeah, but when you have somebody that's actually doing what y'all are doing, it's refreshing, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I agree.
No, I appreciate that. I think the key, to any research in general, let alone Sasquatch research, is that you got to keep it simple in a lot of ways. You just got to, first of all, if you're coming into this, don't have an ego. Okay. Throw your ego out the door, because nobody's an expert.
Right.
And then
Amen.
two, don't embellish stuff. Keep it real. What does Thomas Steenberg out of Canada always say? Always, stick to the facts and don't deviate from those facts, and so if you can just keep it real, and just keep it real. That's why I'm not a huge fan of TV in programs in general. There's a lot of embellishment, and it has to be entertaining.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Otherwise, you don't have a program, and there's a lot of embellishment and acting. I've been, not just myself, many OP members have been offered over years, many TV positions and stuff. And that's why I like Small Town Monsters. They just keep it real.
Right.
Because honestly, real Sasquatch research is pretty mundane and pretty boring. You get excited when you come across something of significance, but that's far and few between. It doesn't happen that often.
Exactly.
And so I think it's just, those are the fundamentals. It's just be real, keep it real, have fun. When you come across something of significance, document the snot out of it.
Right.
Come in there as much of a citizen scientist as you can. And if you can't do it, bring in people that can, And so we're really a data-driven organization, and it's just a fun, good people of all walks of life that keep it real. The vast majority of the Olymp Project knows Sasquatch exists. They've either had a counter or a sighting, or they've looked at the sheer amount of evidence out there and come to either a conclusion, or it's propelled them to keep looking into it, knowing that there's something to this,
And there's so much. I want people to go and actually support Small Town Monsters and some of y'all's documentaries and really dig into, because we could talk. Like I said, it's a long conversation. I want to hit some of the spots where, when you said it's mundane and all, and here's the thing is, y'all have a great reputation, and you don't want to do anything to tarnish that. So you make sure it gets, probably the pressure builds to make sure that it's exactly right, as it goes along. But I wanted to ask you about as many times as you've been in there and nothing has happened. The day that y'all walked up on whatever it was making the nest, can you tell the people in the audience about that situation?
Oh
I
yeah.
want to hear that.
Yeah, 'cause it's been a while since I've had something that exciting happen, and that was in 2020, the tail end of February of 2020, and I'm still amazed by it. But so Derek Randall's my partner and co-founder of the Olymp Project, and I had been in that general area a few weeks back. We were just basically in an adjacent ravine, an area we had not yet searched out. And so he got the idea to go out there and, hey, we've not been down in this area. So we got our maps and looked it out, and eventually drove out to this area, hiked in, and started exploring. And we came across what we thought maybe were some very old nests.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't definitive. They were maybe 6-7 years old, if they were nests at all, but they looked very reminiscent of how they would have looked, having been, in nature, in the wild, weather tearing them up, animals. And so we only did like a quarter of this huge area, and it was raining and stuff. So we head out of there, and a couple of weeks later, I invite my buddy Todd Hale out, another member of the Olymp Project, and we drive out to this area, and we're going to spend a couple of days out there. So we set up our camp, and he had not been to this new area yet. So I wanted to, before it got dark, I said, let's hike in here. I'm going to show you this ravine. And basically you just have this ridge line with fingers coming off, and then you have a steep drop off into a seasonal salmon creek. So I said, hey, let's just head out there before it gets dark. And so we started hiking out there, and a while later we get down to the tail end of this ridge line, and we're about to start walking down and enter one of these plateaus or fingers coming off this ridge line. And I started hearing some really loud snapping, breaks. And I'm like, oh, shoot. And you got to understand, Todd Hale, he's a motocross guy. He listens to a lot of music. He's been a construction guy his whole life. He's pretty deaf. I mean, you have to yell sometimes. Well, I'm hearing this, and he had just fallen down behind me on the ground. He tripped over something. He was cussing up a storm, and I said, shh, there's something big over here. In my head, we have elk, we have bear, we have deer, stuff like that. This sounded big, whatever it was. And he heard it. That's how loud these breaks were. And I knew that he could hear it, that it's something big.
Yeah.
And it's coming at us. I could hear it, and it's breaking stuff. And it stops. And then we hear it retreat down the other side of this, down towards the creek. But then we could hear it moving, circling up kind of up behind us. And we were at a lower spot. Now it's above us. And I thought, well, that's not bear behavior, and that's not elk behavior. It didn't sound like a quadruped, but I couldn't swear by that.
Yeah.
And so I said, hey, let's get back up top. I don't want whatever this thing is circling us behind us. So we get back up top, and we're listening. And we probably were up there 10, 15 minutes and didn't hear anything. So we assumed it wasn't there anymore. It could have been. And Todd said, hey, let's go back down to where we originally heard this thing. See, if we can find anything. Maybe we'll figure out what it was. So we head back down in there and go over the down onto this finger. And we're going in there. Now I'm starting to see, we have this ground plant up here, ground that's called salal, and it's just a ground cover. It's very thick in this area. And there looks like something's been walking back and forth. It's really trampled. And then there's a fallen log that's in the middle of this, and it looks like a very heavy impression. Something big, large, and flat-footed had stepped on it. So we're just creeping our way in there. And we get to this area, and we're looking around, and we're like, oh, my gosh. There is huckleberry. So we have evergreen huckleberry up in this area, and it can grow up to like 9 feet tall. It's very thick. And there's breaks 9 feet off the ground. Some of them are a foot off the ground, but everything's just busted up. We go a little bit further, and there's just devastation in there. And so, I'll be honest with you, I was a little weirded out. I thought, man, we got huckleberry breaks, and these are very reminiscent of the original nest area that was discovered in 2015. And I got pretty excited. I told Todd that night, I said, we stumbled on something. It's been about 5 years, but we may find a nest in this area. We may have just walked in on a Sasquatch, but I didn't know.
Right.
Now, we wanted to explore more, but we wanted to bring a couple other partners out there, Derek Randalls and a few others, and which we did. We called them up that night, and they came out the following morning. We went back to our camp that night, Todd Hill and I, and we had some stuff moving around our camp that night. We got a couple of neat audio recordings. And so we slept through the night, didn't have anything too crazy happen. We end up meeting Derek Randalls, and he came out and joined us, and we all hiked back into this area, and we went a little bit further into this area. And that's when we noticed this gigantic pile of huckleberry that was starting to be formulated into a nest. And so we were instantly high-fiving each other, just over the moon. We found, we didn't get the subject on camera or our eyes on it, but we were pretty confident what we were seeing, that this was, whoever made the nest in 2015 was back and making more, at least one, if not more. And so we made the conscious decision then not to touch anything. We were going to fly in Dr. Meldrum. We got him on the horn right away. We were going to get a hold of some non-Bigfoot related individuals, some biologists, whoever we could get, come out there and collect the data. We didn't want to touch it. We're laymen. Right. We've been down this road before. So we're going to let them go in there and collect whatever the heck they want to collect. cast what they want to cast, document what they want to document. The unfortunate thing was this was the latter part of, I think it was February 29th when we discovered it. So it would have been the latter part of February 2020. Well, guess what happened in
2
Washington?
weeks later.
Yep.
2 weeks later. Yeah.
Yeah. COVID hit, and nobody wanted to fly. Nobody knew what was going on. Everybody's freaking out, and so we were in a conundrum then, because we were, in this, we only gave it a couple of days, but I mean, it was, things were going fast, and we had weather moving into this area, snow, and so we decided to go in there and just collect everything, whatever that is. Let's collect the material, collect hair. And so we went small group out there. We brought Cliff Barrickman out there with us because he's a good friend of ours. He lives in Oregon, not too far away. He's been to the nest area before. He's really good at casting stuff. And we had found 14-inch impressions. We had found a few other two hand impressions. And then later on, we actually found another half hand impression. So we went in there and we started collecting all the debris, documenting, taking photos, casting foot impressions. And two of the foot impressions that I was really proud of, we're excited about, I should say, was that when we started, Cliff and I were bagging up the nest material, the huckleberry. When we had lifted up the material, right below there were two 14-inch tracks that you never would have seen if had you not moved that material.
Right.
It was underneath
cool.
there. Yeah. It was a right foot and a right foot. So something had basically stepped and then moved again. But then you look straight up and there's huckleberry breaks up there. So it was gathering stuff and dropping it down right there. And we got all that on video and collected all that stuff. But that was profound to me. Profound. And so, looking back on it, I mean, it was one really exciting. We're out there all the time. Not so much lately. We kind of try to leave some of this area vacant. We try not to make too big a presence in there at times. Right now we haven't been in there other than placing one audio unit in a general vicinity. We back out of there hoping that maybe that was 2020. Maybe now that we're in 2025, something will come back in this general area and make more nests. And that's our goal. Come mid-March is when we're going to walk in there, and we're going to spend weeks in there looking for more nests or sign. And I'm pretty excited about it. I got some good feelings about this year. And so, yeah, I mean, that was an exciting thing. I think Todd Hill and I were this close. We had our GoPros running, this close to seeing. But when it came at us, when we heard it, it eventually stopped and then retreated. I don't think, because it was dumb luck. When we walked in there, this is a long ridge line. We could have walked multiple directions. We literally walked in on this thing.
Yeah.
And I think, we could argue about what it was, but whatever it was, I think was shocked that we got that close. Yeah. And I think it waited because if you've seen the amount of huckleberry collected in this area and the devastation, it was a lot of work. I almost felt a little bit guilty after the fact because
you messed it up for him.
Messed it up, and that, yeah, I did reflect on. I kind of felt guilty, and that's kind of the reason we're going to wait till mid-March to go in there. I mean, that's not a bad plan because I was going to ask you 2020 when all that happened, and you didn't have as many people going. Did you notice when everybody started going back, there might have been more activity while everybody was gone, or? Yeah,
great question.
Yeah, great question. We usually don't bring a whole lot of people. Literally, it's a handful. And at any given time, it's maybe 3 of us. And the area is so vast. It's vast. What we noticed with the audio. So after we'd spent a couple of nights out there camping, I started placing audio about 200 yards, 150 yards away from the nest area. And 2 nights later, I mean, we had something coming through there. We call it elephant in the woods. It could be because you could just hear, it sounds mad. You could hear smashing and stomping. And we went in that area and there's little trees uprooted. And that's not bear behavior or elk behavior, especially with the recording we got. But so something stayed in that area for a little spell and then moved on. But this area is really neat because I don't think. I'm saying Sasquatch. I don't think they're leaving the area. They're transitory, in my opinion. They move from elevation to elevation depending on food sources and the weather.
Right.
You can go from mountain snow to the valley floor real quick, relatively quick, and be out of the elements, and then have lots of food sources. So transitory. I think they're moving through this area periodically, just like the other animals do. They don't migrate or vacate it for years on end. Or we
Right.
got to, based on the audio and based on some of the tracks we've come across that are the same tracks as a month prior and years prior. So we have the same individuals moving in and out of this area periodically. There's not necessarily any rhyme or reason. We got a couple ideas that maybe they're on a kind of a 7-day cycle, possibly coming in and out of this area. And I don't mean right in this area, but in the general vicinity.
Right.
And that's just an idea based on the audio.
You're talking about a lot of landmass, I imagine, with, people can't wrap their head around how much, land is there probably.
Yeah, it's amazing and astronomical, and you're not just talking about land mass, but you're talking about different elevations, mountains, rivers, lakes. I mean, it's intense.
Well, so Amanda, I promise you, I'm gonna let you.
No, it's okay. I've got questions here too. I'm like, wait. Never mind.
Being a hunter, when you said it was on the east side, I immediately go to, okay, are these things coming from the west side to have their babies because less wind, maybe because of the mountain range? And I'm thinking of like where it's located and how the wind may come in, what direction it would come in. And the east side would probably be a perfect spot to get out of the elements as much as possible. But that's just me spitballing. But that's, as soon as you said that, I'm thinking that might be because of that factor there. But there's y'all. I am watching chat. Amanda's watching chat. But, but there's so much to dig into here, and we're kind of limited on time. And I was wanting to pick Shane's brain as much as I can.
It's a small brain; it won't take you long.
It won't take me long to do it, right? But as you're talking, we have a Flat Rock here. He lives in southern Alabama. He doesn't get to travel much, and he records every night. He has a lot of. He said in his area he's got it down to 3 weeks during the year where it's more active in that area. Spencer, does the woodwalkers and whatever. If I have something happen or my son has something happen, he's in Virginia and we're in Tennessee. I call Spencer because Spencer writes everything down. Moon phases, where we're at, on what side of the hill we were on, what was the weather.
Is that Shane Spencer?
No, that's Spencer.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
I drew a blank. Spencer's gonna kill me, y'all. Spencer, who? Yeah, everybody's laughing now. Greg, I'm on pain meds, y'all. So I had the hip surgery, so Jameson, there you go.
Oh, yes.
Irish whiskey, right? No, but it always ties in. But anyway, I'm sorry, Spencer's gonna kill me. But I know when I call him to not really to report, but he's gonna log it down, and with the place like y'all have, it's almost here it's a big area, but you guys, like you said, you just happened to walk down the right trail. You hadn't been there before, and I've seen this a lot with people I've interviewed. Whether it's in a car or whether it's walking, it's happened to me where I've walked and it's pretty quiet and walk up and something going on, right? And you surprise either deer or whatever. We had a huff growl opening day of deer season. My son and I, we usually make noise on the way out because we've had things throw rocks at us and stuff. So we don't want to, make anything mad. And so we were tired and we just forgot. And it's almost like when we came over the little rise and it's short grass, it turned like a quarter turn and just growled at us like it was frustrated. And that's happened to us several times. And it's not good anytime it happens, but it didn't sound threatening. It was almost like, oh crap, I've let you walk up on me. So as you're talking, and we've got the people off from all over the country. I'm sure they're picking up on some things too. But I'm Amanda.
Mhm.
If you have any questions for
Yeah,
Shane, I'll
actually,
shut up.
some of the I just as you were talking, some little light bulbs went off, and I was like, "Oh, that sound would be interesting." So you're talking about the elephant, going through the forest or anything. Do you think that instances like that have happened to you, have y'all gotten that just whenever you guys are in presence, or have you ever captured anything like that similar in audio whenever there's no human interaction around?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Some of the best recordings actually were never in person, or best vocals or whatever have you.
Mm. Well, not
Were
necessarily just vocals, just like the elephant crashing through the forest, like all the limb breaking, just what everybody talks about Bigfoot being like a bulldozer in the woods down here, because they're just so huge and bulking. And then I have a lot of people who counter to me with, well, how can something that big be so quiet also at the same time? So when you mentioned that, I was just curious if any of your recording stuff had ever captured anything like that without human presence around to kind of instigate them going, "Oh crap, I need to get out of here and run through the woods."
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. You got to think about it, cause and effect. Obviously, I think Sasquatch are the masters of being quiet and still and all
Mhm.
that. I mean, you know, Rodgino is a hunter. I mean, deer can stay still really well, and you can walk right by them if you're not observant, you're not looking for those features.
Yeah.
And
They will actually lay there and let you walk by. If they
yes,
don't think you
Mhm.
see them, they will let you walk by.
nailed. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and a good mature buck, they're experts at it.
yeah,
Now, with Sasquatch, I mean, they could do the same. They could sit still, and you're just looking at a stump or a tree, or they stay a certain distance. They have this uncanny ability just to get close enough without being seen. They're really good at
Mhm.
it, in my opinion. But what's fascinating about some of those more, crashing in the woods and tearing stuff up. I mean, elk do that up here. Bears can do it. Elk are notorious for doing stuff like that. So it's sometimes on the audio, it can be, if you don't have other things like percussives and knocks, it could
Mhm.
be a little bit hard to differentiate. Okay, was that a Sasquatch? Was that an elk? Was that
right,
whatever
Right,
have
right.
you? But then you got some recordings you just dang well know. You're like, wow, that is massive, and you can hear something smacked against trees, and sometimes you get grunts, and you're like, oh, that's not a bear, that's not an elk.
right.
And what's really interesting is when that thing in 2020 we got that recording, it was maybe 50 feet from my recorder. I think it it,
Wow.
it it knew we had been in that area.
Yeah,
Well, obviously, it knew we had been in the nest area, if that indeed that was a Sasquatch. But I actually think it either smelt, or my recorder at that time I had buried under a little bit of debris. I was using a Tascam DR05, and I had an external battery pack on it, so it would last 3 days, and I could just leave it alone. That's before we had our better units now that can last months. But
Mhm.
um, what I and Chris Spencer of the Olymp Project had talked to this too. With audio units, at least with our experience, it sometimes, and there may be nothing to this, but people argue about game cameras. Well, with audio units, it's almost like they're attracted once they discover them. At least in this area, if they discover them, and we believe they have,
Mhm.
they'll go a while not finding it. When they find it, they'll do that. They'll stomp around, throw rocks, throw sticks. They know that it doesn't belong there, that it's probably human. They don't understand what it is, but they do a lot of that crashing around and breaking stuff and grunts, and we got some really cool recordings, and then they'll leave the area for a while. Like, oh,
That's really cool. Have you ever had anything mess with any of those, devices that you've left behind before?
w- for me personally, I placed one up in the Olympics after we actually Dr. Meldrum was out on that trip, and we had something circling this hill above us, and it was a really cool experience. And so that night after that happened, the next morning I went out there and I placed a recorder in that general area.
Mhm.
And on the audio recording, you can hear and see visually, because we review our audio visually through a spectrograph like Audacity. So we're looking for signatures.
Mhm.
We're not just sitting there. In the old days, I used to sit there and listen, like, oh, what was that?
yeah,
That ship has sailed. We still listen, but I'm looking at a
right.
spectrograph and looking for certain things. But anyways, in 2015, I had placed a recorder out in this area the following night after having some really neat stuff happen. And on the audio recording, you have these deer. You can hear them coming through the brush, and then they hit this logging road and they scamper off. But they're kind of like trotting along pretty quick. And a couple seconds later, you hear this big stomping, and then a knock, and then you hear this thing come close, and it gets right. My recorder at that time, again, a Tascam DR05, I placed about a foot under a debris, lightly placed it, and this thing, you hear it breathing, and then it puts its muzzle, its face, right on there, and you hear, just grunting, snorting, and it's just pressing on it. And
oh wow!
Then you can hear it lift its face off of there, and it does the most. I mean, it's still to me one of my favorite recordings because of what happened the night prior with the deer coming through the next night, and then this thing coming through, and there's a percussive, a knock. It pulls its head off, and then you hear, oh. I mean, the most apish pant hoots, whatever you want to call it, and then it goes silent for like a while. I mean, like it's just contemplating, or I don't know, and then it gets up and leaves. But so I don't know if it smelt the recorder, it heard the recorder. Maybe I had flipped the Tascam on its face, so the red light was pointing down. But this was almost midnight when this thing came through, and so maybe with its eyesight, could see a little glow. I don't know, but it found that recorder underneath that stuff. It didn't pull the stuff apart. It just put its face on there and breathed and snorted and grunted. That time it just blew my mind. I'm like, okay, so the night prior, we probably did have a Sasquatch circling above us, doing its thing, and it never left the area. And I backtrack a little bit about that story. That's really interesting is that I placed our recorder the following night around 5 p.m. It was still daylight. I hike out later on that night about 9:30 or 10. Dr. Meldrum, myself, Derek Randalls, and a few others went back out to the same area. My recorder was running. You could hear us coming from a distance, and we didn't get anything going on. And so it's just, we sat there for about an hour. Nothing was going on. And Dr. Meldrum goes, "Hey, can anybody here whistle?" We had a buddy of ours from Texas out with us, and he's like, "Yeah, I can whistle." And he just lets out this, really loud, coarse whistle, and he got an immediate whistle back. I mean, it was almost immediate. So we're like, wow, we were all like, mind's blown. And then that was it. Nothing else happened. We didn't get anything on therm. We weren't going. It was so thick. But and then later on, I had that thing come to my recorder after we'd left. And I might have been chasing those deer. I don't know, but those deer were hauling butt. So yeah,
that's really neat. Was that happened to be any of that the recordings that was shown in the Small Town Monsters presentation or not?
no.
The only reason I asked that is because I happened to be watching it earlier, and I don't know if you can. It'll show up on the camera or not. This is my phone, but my cat had some pretty fun reactions while it was playing those audio recordings, and I remember the grunt that was in that on there, and I was like,
"Yeah, those are from
those were amazing." So
those are from the nest
better
area.
Than that's got to be.
Yeah, those are from the nest area. Those recordings. I don't think I've ever publicly shared that recording. I probably should, because I think they're really interesting. Really interesting. And when you compare them visually to known primates, some of those vocals that I recorded are very similar. And I know some people have an issue with, it's a primate. I mean, Sasquatch is a sort of primate. Doesn't mean they're a knuckle dragging great gorilla. I don't buy that, but they're a primate and they're smart. They're very, the sounds are very apish. I mean, there's no getting around that.
And that's not, we've got people in chat I know very well that have heard the same thing in the Southeast here. And Greg will tell you some of his stories where it sounds like they get excited and they work themselves up, just like one of those recordings. Whether they're feeding, they mentioned primates feeding and getting excited, or when it's feeding time.
Yeah.
But, they all get to scream and work themselves up and then do whatever they do. When I heard that, I thought about some of these people that are in chat here that actually do record and have, some of the experiences. And the similarities with a lot of that, it's like something you said, you were talking about the breaks and the snaps. I have been lucky enough. I didn't think I was lucky at the time, because we had one throwing a fit, and we had one further away screaming.
Mm.
That was breaking. And when you have a high pressure green tree, hardwood break, and it's 30 yards from you in the woods, it sounds like it's more than a gun. It's and there's a difference. I've seen animals run, and the bigger bucks, you'll hear the antlers hitting the little limbs, and you'll hear the hooves hitting rocks. But when these things move, it's none of that. It's the heavy footfalls. I mean, it's totally different sound.
Yeah.
And the more experience that you've had with certain things, that means you can rule out, what it's not, and so that's very important. But people do get upset when you say primates, but I mean, you go from you're seeing nest, that primate like nest.
The hair alone is primate hair. I mean,
Right.
It lacks a medulla. It doesn't match anything up here at all. It doesn't match anything. The hair is primate hair. I've been told that multiple times. I've got my own microscope now. I like to bet hair because I kind of think I know what I'm looking for based on individuals like Dr. Meldrum, Cindy Dosen of Homini Enigma out of Canada, and other labs that looked at it's primate hair. It's just, so I mean, we can argue, what sort of primate. That it doesn't even matter to me, honestly.
Right.
They're real. The Sasquatch are a real thing. So we can argue about that all day. It doesn't bother me. Some people think they're more people-like. They have characteristics of kind of people, and they got characteristics of primates. They're obviously very intelligent. And like I say, it's when people ask me, "What do you think Sasquatch is?" and I go, "It's a sort of primate. Where it falls in line, I don't know. I don't know." And maybe one day we will know. But I think that the key is just knowing that they're real, and what and picking up on their patterns, and finding things, and studying them, and writing down data. What they are, we can argue about that later.
But the thing is, to find out, you have to do what you're doing. You have to do what people in chat are doing. And I think Amanda, we talked about. Somebody asked us about favorite types of evidence, and mine is sound, is audio, because it's measurable. You do have the patterns like you're talking about, and you have this database, I guess, of what animals sound like, what their patterns are, and whatever. And you can rule a lot of things out. So that's one of my favorite. And when I saw that Small Town Monsters, and they started showing the audio and the spectrogram, I'm like, I sent Amanda a message that says, "Hey, you got to watch this one."
Yeah, you did. Yeah, and for somebody who's kind of newer into all of this, having that type of data out there, that type of data being collected, is so helpful. So, where like if somebody's showing me something or I'm hearing something, I can take it and go, well, actually, no, this is probably just a fox or a bobcat or a barred owl or something. And then, because like, well, actually, no, that could probably be something similar to this. And like Roger mentioned, some of his favorite evidence is the audio, and I have to agree. But I also really think that some of the hair stuff is absolutely fascinating. That just from my background as a veterinary assistant and looking at stuff under microscopes all the time, the fact that you have those differentiations in the medulla and stuff is just it's really cool to have that data set to compare it to other known things like cats and dogs and bears and everything.
And Shane,
it's all measurable.
Exactly.
There's something I wanted to say. You guys, your group, I've heard them talk. You play yourself down a little bit. Everybody brings something different to the table. But if you go back and look at some of if you went to a university and you learned this one thing, that a lot of people have trouble getting away from that. You guys have open minds, and you're not in a box, right? So then you can try different things. When I saw you climb the tree with the tree stand, I'm like, yes, because that's some of the best stories I've heard. People have been full camo in tree stands and in spots they normally weren't. And my thing is, if I had money and I had time to do this, I would be out during the day with a camera ready to go. And I know that's tough, but some of the best encounter stories I've heard have been like that. They were up above the wind. They didn't get winded. They weren't skylined where you could see them moving. And these things come in and they don't even know you're there. That's hard to do with something that's smart. I mean, it's hard to do with deer, but it can be done. And the one story that I go back to, it was almost like the Bigfoot was mad because it got busted and it was tearing up bushes. Like
Yeah,
you're talking about.
I know that story. Yeah, I know exactly the story you're talking about. Yeah,
and I started out as a co-host for that guy. That's how I got my start. And if it's the same one, and it was throwing a fit. That's why I said earlier, this thing we heard was throwing a fit. I could hear it pick up the half dead logs and drag it to it. We were like, what is that? And then it would hit a tree and we could hear the end of it break and go through slapping other trees. And it was mad. And I think we wore out our welcome in that particular spot. I don't know. But and another thing I like about you and your teammates is you're not scared to say, I don't know. I mean,
oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
many
y'all
you don't know.
Y'all have become some of my favorites just watching this past week because there are no egos and everybody's out there for the same thing, and you help each other out. So
yeah, I mean we're, like I said, I know I'm fortunate to know they exist. So but I don't claim to know anything. But what's really cool about before I purchased a tree stand, I used to just climb trees. I used to go like 90 feet up there. Like, way up there. And my wife would go, I got videos. It would, yeah, I probably wouldn't do it nowadays. But on this side of the country, there's not many hunters that use tree stands at all. They use ground blinds and stuff. Not many guys, because we don't, up where I hunt generally, it's all blacktail, Sitka, or Columbia deer. I mean, there's elk and stuff, but we're up in this area. We don't have any whitetail, and blacktail for me are the hardest hunting. They're the hardest deer to hunt. We call them ghosts of the woods because they'll be there 1 minute and they're gone, or they'll just appear, and they love to be in the thick stuff, just like the Sasquatch. They have no problem going through the thickest, nastiest stuff, and they're great in the rain. So the tree stand thing, when I purchased it, I bought it for hunting because I'm like, no one's out here hunting in tree stands. Everybody's on the ground blinds, or building ground blinds. But the tree stand, it is hard with some trees out here because of the branches. But find the right tree, and you can get a way up there. And as hunters, I think a lot of times where some of these guys, whether it's this side of the country or your side of the country, or on the East Coast, whatever. You get up in a tree stand and you're sitting still. You're above the wind. You're got your angles up, but you're sitting still. So Sasquatch isn't looking for people and stuff up in the trees. They're looking, just like we'd be looking. So I think there's an advantage to that. And if you're in the right area, the right time, and if you keep doing it over and over again, you might just get. I've spent nights, like literally overnight, in a tree stand with my therm.
And if you think about it, from what you're saying, if you're on the ground and they're on the ground, they've got the advantage in all that bush because they're taller than you, right? Yeah. They can be standing there and see you down. There was one where the guy didn't have his camera, and he saw something black, and then you started going up there, and you couldn't even see you. But I stopped. This is funny to me. As soon as you started that, I stopped. I paused it. And I'd get my phone out and I started Googling what kind of snakes they had up there. And I'm like, okay, it's not that bad. So I let it play on.
Not bad at all. Yeah, we don't have any real poisonous spiders up here. We don't have centipedes or scorpions.
Yeah,
I mean, I lived in Southern California for years. I used to pick up rattlesnakes and tarantulas and all that stuff. But you had to look out for them because they were everywhere. Up here, no. The worst thing we have to worry about, there's two things. And ticks aren't even that bad on the west side. You go to Eastern Oregon and Washington, they get pretty bad. Yeah. Ticks up here are not that bad at all. But the only thing we really have an issue with, especially in the summer months, is ground wasps and hornets. Last year, I got stung over 30 times hiking around. I mean, literally, accumulatively. And bears and mountain lions and all that junk. But we don't have any poisonous snakes out here. Now, Eastern Washington, Oregon, sure, you got your rattlesnakes and all that. But where we traverse, you just have to deal with really nasty weather and thick stuff, and careful you don't break your leg. And in the summer, watch out for, bees and hornets and wasps. And then, obviously, there's black bear everywhere, and you got a lot of mountain lion out here. A lot. I got them all over my cameras all the time. And I was just checking the camera a week ago, and within an hour of me placing my camera, I had a mountain lion following me.
Oh wow! No, thank you.
They're all over the place. They're always there. They're always watching you. You know.
Well,
Can I bug you with a question?
Oh, sure.
Sorry, I was trying to cut in when the conversation here.
Hey.
So you mentioned it, talking about you getting up in the tree stand and stuff. Down here, we hear, and where I work at the museum, I hear reports of the Bigfoot themselves being up in the tree. So a lot of times they tell people who want to go out looking for Bigfoot, not necessarily just look down, but also to look up. What are your thoughts on that? Have you guys ever seen or had any kind of evidence that would show that they can get up in trees, or that you feel like they're more ground dwelling?
I really do believe they're more ground dwelling, but I've taken lots of reports where people have seen them in trees. Obviously, you got to just guesstimating. Say you have a 400 to 600 pound, 7 foot tall, 8 foot tall Sasquatch. Some of the trees out here, I mean, we have a lot of old growth that are massive, but a lot of the areas we're in that I don't think it would work for them. The weight, now black bear can get up there, but they, average black bear out here is 250 pounds. We do have some bigger ones, some with 300, 400, 500 pound, but and then you get up a tree, no problem. The problem with Sasquatch, now I think the little ones probably do all the time. The smaller ones, they're more capable. They can hide. You can get way up in there. And we have, really tall Doug fir and all sorts of trees. But do the bigger ones do that? Yeah, I think if they're comfortable. But once they're up in a tree, they're kind of stuck. It's kind of like a trap. So I have a hard time. It's like the whole cave thing, right? That we have caves out here in Washington, not in the nest area. We've surveyed there. There's no caves. Does Sasquatch use caves? Well, probably periodically. I don't think they're traveling in caves unless you have multiple ways out, because once you go into a cave and you don't have another way out, you're trapped. And I don't think Sasquatch is going to get trapped. I don't think they're going to climb a tree and get trapped. Now, if they can hide in something, sure, that you won't see them. And you have the right size tree. But the little ones, I think, probably do. We've not found anything personally that I can say, oh, yeah, Sasquatch was up in that tree, or it looks like they may have been. Maybe I'm just missing stuff. That's quite possible. But I am definitely of the opinion, though, look up. Always look up. You never know what you're going to see up there.
You have to.
Oh, yeah.
True, yeah. Absolutely.
Lord.
Mountain lions.
Yeah, absolutely. And, when people are out in the woods, it's sometimes they're not looking up, but sometimes they're not looking down, because I do believe that Sasquatch can get down real low on all fours. And, I've taken on a lot of reports where they say they can spider crawl. And I got a good friend, a good buddy, Barcatino, that saw this, and he's solved the earth, honest guy. And so, when I'm out therming, when I have my thermal camera, I'm looking up, I'm looking mid, everybody, your average researcher or individual is looking 6 feet off, 6 feet up, I look down, look behind stuff, get down low, because that's how, if you got a 7 foot tall Sasquatch and say that, you can see over the bushes and whatnot, well, so can they. If they're going to stay hidden, they're not going to be standing right there with their head. They're going to be down. Right.
I've got a good story, just a quick story that goes with that, but it's not with a Sasquatch. But we had a white deer on our farm, and we had a lot of deer. And so the rest of the herd tried to shun this deer because it's like a sign. So here we are,
Yeah, it sounds like Rudolph.
Run this deer off. So we had a long driveway up on the ridges. And one day I saw this deer by itself, in the woods there. And I wasn't going to shoot it. I got out, got my scope, was looking. Well, it was standing there on the ground behind logs, and there were 17 other deer there that were hid. And I never would have known they were there if I hadn't seen that one. But they were all laying down. And you'd see ears poked up over a log here or something behind this tree there. And so I think you're right. If you're in the woods, a lot of people, like when they start deer hunting here, they're looking too high for a deer, right? They're looking up. Now, why you're looking 12 feet up? I mean, you look down here, look for an angle. You're looking for a elbow, or you're looking for whatever, right? Yeah. And I taught my wife, she couldn't spot a deer for anything when we first got together. Now she's getting good at it. But you have to take in the whole picture. And if it was me, I've been turkey hunting places I might not should have. I've laid down before. when the 4-wheeler came by,
Mhm.
just across the fence. So it was neighbors, you know what I'm saying? But it wasn't like I was.
Oh, that's
But hey, I mean, I have stood there full camo 3 times in my life while hunters walked by me
Mhm.
talking and just stood still, and they just went right by and up against a tree. So I have. It's not it's not that far fetched to think that hey, they're smart. They're really smart. If y'all have been in that area as long as you have, you've gathered all the information you have, and they're still outsmarting you, so to speak, right? And now, I believe most all encounters are surprises to the person and the Sasquatch,
Mhm.
whether you're driving at night or driving down the road. And um, what happened to me, if I'd have been there 5 minutes earlier and left, or 5 minutes later, I wouldn't be here talking to you guys. I say that all the time. It
Yeah.
happened just as I was there, a little, 14-year-old kid, and it stepped out. I don't know whether, I always say pressure makes animals and people do things they normally don't. I don't know what was going on in 100 yards back in the woods. Maybe a farmer was back there and he ran up on his tractor or
Mhm.
you know what I mean? And so you don't,
Yeah.
so anyway, and with you guys, when y'all run up on the one making the nest, you thought y'all turned the camera on right away. That's what you guys are doing. And people are like, well, why didn't you turn the camera? Why didn't you get your phone out? You don't think about that stuff. If you actually see one, that's the last thing on your mind. Now if you're a seasoned vet and you have cameras on you, but you got this rant started but you struck a nerve because you're exactly right. There's they don't have to they don't have to be the fastest runner. The finger ridges you're talking about. I the deer I've observed deer all my life. They'll get up there and run that ridge, and if you spook them, they can be gone in a second, but they don't have to
Mhm.
go like 30, 40 yards just to be
Mhm.
over the line of sight. And then they can double back. They can run this way, go over that, and double back this way, and come by you with just a few yards over the ridge, and you're going in the wrong direction.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, deer are amazing too. My buddy Derek, co-founder of the Olympic Project, he's been hunting black-tailed deer for over 50 years, or 45 years. And black-tailed deer and a lot of deer in general, but the black-tailed deer are amazing. I didn't know they could belly crawl, and that blew my mind. They can get down low and do the
Yes.
craziest things. You just blows your mind. You're like, well, if a deer can do that,
Yes.
I mean, 2 years ago, I
Absolutely.
got a nice black-tail buck, and I got him bedded down. I saw him at 200 yards with my eyeball, and all I saw was something that looked a little bit different than the terrain. Yeah.
Mhm.
And got my scope up, and sure enough, so it's being observant. But we backtrack a little. We did an experiment. Oh, I don't know, 5, 6 years ago. We took a group out to the Olympics, and we had a guy put on a Sasquatch costume. And the experiment was to spot this person and get a photo with your phone, knowing we told them the general area, like
Yeah.
wasn't gonna be like miles and miles, the general area. And at one point that Sasquatch, that person's gonna walk right there across this spot. And
Right.
you got to find him before then. But if you don't, just get a photo of him walking from point A to
Yeah.
point B. Nobody did it.
Right.
Nobody.
That's
They
cool.
were, even though they had their cameras in their hand, they're
Yeah.
ready. They still didn't. It happened too quick, and they were looking at it. So it just goes to show you that, I mean, when I'm out in the woods, I have GoPro running or 2 GoPros running all the time, but you're still looking for a moving needle in a haystack. And these things, just like your mountain lion and everything else, they already know you're there before you know you're there.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so when you look at researchers in general, investigators, enthusiasts, when they're out there, more times than not, they're never going to see another Sasquatch or see one. It's always average people doing average things. My only sighting on sighting, seen one, was in 2011, and I was out fishing with friends in a remote area of Mount Hood Wilderness in Oregon. Wasn't doing anything Bigfoot related. It found us. We didn't find it. And when number one sighting obviously is roadside crossings. There's more people on
Mhm.
roads than they are hiking and exploring, but they're always used. 9 times, 10 times out of 10, almost the time, their Sasquatch is spotted by fishermen, hikers, people driving. not researchers or, and that's just the cold hard truth.
Yeah.
I have pretty sure I've seen Sasquatch through a thermal camera now twice since 2011, maybe even 3 times, maybe a 3rd time. But I would love to have another visual. I think I've gotten close, but not close enough,
Mhm.
And that shows you how rare it is. I went looking. We didn't have much, but I went looking over the years and didn't have much information. Then when the TV shows came out and then YouTube and all that, and then you get into the community and you get to talking to people and you think, man, there's a lot of people have had this happen. But when you
Mhm.
get out away from the community, it's like everybody's like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
We
Mhm.
and the proof is out there. Just the people don't want to take the time to find it. And real quick, the belly crawl. My dad, I was hunting. I was about 12. My dad had a bad habit of smoking cigarettes in the woods. So I was in my stand. This doe came along, whitetail. She came along up the trail split, and she went his way. And apparently he was smoking a cigarette. And she came back, and she was hunkered down, but she was looking back over her shoulder. And when she got to the opening where the sage grass was about 2.5 foot tall, she dropped down on her knees and crawled on her belly across that field. It wasn't very long.
Yeah.
Hopped up at the fence and boom, across the fence and gone. I was stunned. I
Wow.
saw
Yeah.
it. So anyway,
We don't give
but
them enough credit.
no,
We really don't. I have a funny story that can kind of go along with that. So, Shane, I don't know if how too familiar you are, if you've ever been to the website for the Bigfoot Museum I work at.
Oh, yeah.
But we have a large statue out front of the building now. But previously, the big guy claim to fame was the big Sasquatch reproduction inside the museum. We name him Raven because of his black hair. Anyhow, I have a funny story. He was kind of the claim to fame. Everybody wanted to come and have their picture taken with Raven. And so I had this couple come up to me one time right after I first started working there, and they said, "Hey, where's the Bigfoot at the, they're showing him." I was like, right over there. And I was like, it hit me. I was like, you're in a Bigfoot museum
Mm-hmm.
and you can't find
the big
the Bigfoot. How are you expecting these people to find or see something like that in the woods? Because I mean, just looking outside my window here, you can't see if it's not moving 10, few feet out within there, you're not going to see it if it's holding
Right.
still. So yeah,
Yeah.
if you're not actively looking for it, or if it's not letting itself be known
Yeah.
and be seen, you're not going to see it.
And
Yeah.
Shane being a hunter, I'm sure you've done this like I have. See deer coming and you have a lead doe or she's kind of suspicious that something's going on. Or if you're about ready to take a shot on a buck and he walks behind a tree and his eye goes behind a tree, that's when you make your move. If and
Yeah.
something as smart as you're talking about we're dealing with will know when to move and not to move. And maybe hold on until the last second, and then do that run like you're talking about. But there's so many things and that's why I like your group is because you're trying different things and a lot of people I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings or whatever and they want to get involved and they'll go out and do what they see on the productions you said for entertainment, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And personally, I've done the night thing or whatever. I like daytime.
Mhm.
I can see. I mean, at nighttime, you're sitting duck.
Mhm.
And let me ask you this: have you heard of anything on your side of the country over there of one of these things being violent and actually trying to hurt somebody or hurting somebody?
Mm.
Yeah, that's a good question. I've heard here and there stories, but not really. I mean, most of those stories I've heard on other podcasts, or I'm not really. I mean, one person's aggressive encounters, another person's kind of passive. So, I mean, 2011 when I had my encounter back then, I would have said, "Oh yeah, it was aggressive and all that." But
Yeah.
then reflecting on it now, I'm like, "No, it really wasn't." I mean, it could have come in and smashed our tents and did all sorts of stuff. It threw a rock at our camp and it stomped around and it beat a tree, but it didn't. Was that aggressive or just territorial?
Right.
So, I mean,
No, I totally
Not too often.
understand.
Not too often. I mean, the way I approach Sasquatch is the way I approach bear and mountain lion. I don't fear them per se, but I respect them. I know what they're capable of doing.
Yeah.
And I assume Sasquatch is capable of doing a lot of things. And people ask me, you think they take people and all that? I said, well, I don't think they're going around plucking people. Have they? Maybe. If you come in between a sow and her cub, a mama bear and her cub, that's a bad spot. And I've done it one time. It's a bad spot to be in.
It is.
Well, I couldn't tell you what it would be like to run into a mama Sasquatch and her offspring. That could be a bad situation.
Right.
Maybe it's happened. Maybe it hasn't. I don't know what that would be like, but I would assume it might be something similar, and you might be in trouble. Maybe, so it's just being observant and respectful of that. But I personally don't think Sasquatch is going around plucking people, and you hear a lot of rumors and stories, but they usually turn out to be fake. But has it happened? I'd be shocked if there wasn't something to that on rare occasion. I'd be shocked.
And what I tell people when they ask me, we used to raise a certain breed of dog, and out of 100 dogs, we might have 2 that was absolutely crazy.
Just like a horse.
Just like, so maybe they get shunned from the village, right? And they're the ones causing all the ruckus, but you don't know. And I tell people all the time, and people in the chat probably get tired of hearing this, but I only know what I've seen and experienced.
Yes.
That's what I know. I can talk to you all day long, and I trust you to tell me what y'all found. Y'all have evidence, but I can talk to people, or I can read a book that somebody wrote. I'm trusting them to tell me the truth. I only actually know what I've seen, and the only thing that I can contribute is some audio and stuff, but actually seeing the one walk and how it walked up the hill that I always walked up, and I knew it was different. So all this other stuff, when we ask questions, it's it get educated guesses maybe. But you get the people ask the questions, and you try to, and we've got a lot of great questions in here, y'all. I swear, if we had more time, I would ask Shane some of them, but one of them I did see had to do with our camouflage. Now we know that the deer see the blue light spectrum that kind of glows to them, and late in the evening that we kind of glow like lights to them, and we don't know what Bigfoot, how their eyes are built or whatever. So it's possible that it could be the same thing with our clothes, with the chemicals that we wash our clothes with. I don't know that for sure, but anytime that I hear or see something in nature, when I was watching this documentary on the deer, I'm like, okay, well, wonder how that would translate over into the Bigfoot world. We don't know. We'll never know until that time when one is able to be studied.
Yeah, it's absolutely all guesswork. Yeah, it's guesswork and ideas. Like I said, nobody has a Sasquatch in their back pocket. At least that I know of. But so it's a lot of hypothesizing and just throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. But we look at known nature, known animals, look at humans, and kind of guesstimate and probably maybe get in the ballpark, but maybe not exact. Obviously, with Sasquatch, we're dealing with something that's perfect for its environment. It's the ninja of the woods. It's we're all we got away from having to live and survive in the woods, so they've got that on us. And like I said, you just look at known animals. Mountain lions or bear. They're all deer. They're pretty much experts. We hunt deer in certain parts of the season. Well, one because we're kind of forced to, right? But two, it's during the rut when the bucks are acting abnormal, chasing the does around, and so we get to know their behavior. But Sasquatch, we don't know enough to even guess, when anything really.
And I like that. That's kind of has been a surprise this week when I really had time to sit down and watch and listen to everything. There's not enough of that. There's people that you ask questions. I may get asked something a million times. I'm not going to be rude about it or whatever, because people won't understand. And but there's some people in the field, I guess, that self-proclaimed experts and they know everything. They have an answer for everything. They have something happen every time they go out. And I just, maybe there are people like that. I don't know, but it's harder for me to believe that because I've been in the woods a lot in my life, and I had one thing happen in '85, then again in 2020, and several things since 2020. But I'm putting myself out there in those areas, you know, but it's rare. It's still rare. I mean, when something happens, when I find a track, I found three different spots. I found tracks. The first time I ever found a track was 2022 maybe, and I was like giddy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then at the LBL, I found like 30 tracks, but there was like 3 or 4 different individuals. But it's still a shock, even though I know they exist, that it's so rare.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. I don't even know what I'm trying to say.
Well, I agree completely. I've lived on 2 different continents. I spent a lot of time in California. Moved over here from Scotland in '93. From '93 through 2008, I was up and down California. I spent a lot of time in Yosemite. From about '97, it's really when I was getting out into the woods, exploring California in general, from top to bottom. I never had a Sasquatch encounter experience, never found any footprints. And I was looking, I thought pretty hard. I found lots of bear, mountain lion, weirdo people, you name it. Never a Sasquatch. Moved up to Oregon from 2008. I was doing the same thing up here in Oregon, or down there in Oregon. I'm in Washington now, but and then 2011, bam. I wasn't out there hollering, yelling, banging on trees or anything. It happened because, it happened for a couple of reasons, I think, but nothing I really I did. So
right.
These things I honestly believe they're small in number. Maybe they're going extinct, maybe they're not. That's a whole nother argument. But I just think they're generally small in number. I don't think they need large numbers. They probably have large home ranges. I mean, if you look at least the mountain lion in these areas, the females have about 100-mile square radius. The males have about 200-mile square radius, roughly. And so what is a Sasquatch? I actually have no idea, but we can look at the audio and some other stuff to go, okay, well, they're passing through this area possibly this amount of time. But then you're like, well, how many miles do they cover a night? Do they cover miles? Do they? These are all questions that, we're kind of building slowly to getting maybe some answers or formulating some opinions, but they're not absolute. We're not observing a Sasquatch do this physically.
And for that to happen, I think it's good for you guys to gather your information. The people in chat gather your information in your area. Us, we're doing what we can here, Northeast, whatever, and then share a little bit and get together and talk and have the front porch or back porch discussions and around the fire and kind of compare notes. And I always said, I listen to every story because there might be that piece of the puzzle that helps some researcher, like, because a lot of times in places where we're trying to brainstorm, I'll say something stupid just to get people to laugh, to kind of break the tension to where,
we
and then
sound like 2 peas in a pod.
Yeah. And then,
hey, it works.
Yeah, it does. It breaks the tension.
It really does.
And you get an idea from somebody that they never would have had, so it's, and Greg says location. That's right. If I want to catch a 5-pound bass, I'm not going to the bathtub in here. So I know. So y'all, we've been here hour and 18 minutes. Shane has something really important to do. Y'all go. His web. You got a new channel, right?
Yeah, I started. I just started it. I'm behind on uploading videos. Editing and doing all that takes some time. But it's called Sasquatch in the Mist. And I basically, for the last 10 or 11 years, I've had certain individuals reach out to me, go, hey, you got to start a YouTube channel. And I was never interested in doing that. At that time, I was running, a full-time podcast and doing a bunch of other stuff. But, I'm getting older and people want to keep up to date with the Olympic project and some of the stuff I'm doing. And I thought, well, you know what? I'll put a YouTube channel together. And I called it Sasquatch in the Mist because I'm a big fan of Gorillas in the Mist, the book, and Jane Fossey and what she's done and whatnot. So Jane Goodall and all that. So no tie to it other than the name, just the mystery. And I that's why I went with that name. But
Cool.
I'm going to be taking people out to certain areas that I traverse and talking a little bit about Sasquatch, showing people, things I'm looking for, my thoughts and opinions, the Olympic projects, thoughts and opinions. Some of the people I work with will be on there, and we come across something, maybe I'll share it on there. And so it's just a kind of an outlet so people are interested in seeing what the Olympic project's up to, what I'm up to, and they just like to hear stuff about Sasquatch, and be a kind of a cool channel to check out.
Yeah, we appreciate you stopping by. It's good. I think the majority of the people here, maybe from the Mississippi east, we have them scattered everywhere. But like I said, the only way we're going to learn, and I agree with you totally. If I'm playing the guitar, if I'm the smartest one in the room, if I'm the best, I'm never going to learn anything. So, you got to be around people that know more, and you've got to be open-minded. Now, there's some crazy stuff out there. I've had some weird stuff happen, and
Oh, sure.
you made a comment. I mean, how do you know it's associated with Bigfoot? Probably not. Could be. I don't know. Some of the weird stuff we've had happen, I don't know it was because I didn't see it happen together, right? So, yeah, we got Amanda. Do you
Yes.
have any questions before he goes?
Oh, I could pick your brain all evening,
I
but I
know.
won't. I won't hold you up to that.
I
I just
know,
want to
it's
again thank you so much for coming on and talking to such a small show. Like I said, the Olympic project is so big in the Bigfoot world. So it's been a pleasure to have you on and talking to you.
No, I really appreciate the invite, and no, I've enjoyed my time. You guys are awesome, Roger and Amanda, and no, thanks for having me on. And my apologies, I have to go. Like I said,
You're
my
good.
Understand completely.
daughter, we have a calendar at home, and I say, if you got something on, put it on the calendar. And so when I
Mhm.
it's like I had you guys scheduled, I wrote it on there, and it's clear. And she comes, hey, I have a choir recital tonight. I'm like, what time? I'm like, oh man, okay, well, no, I will be there. So that's my
Yep,
fault.
family
'Cause we
comes
could
first
talk all
always.
night. We
Absolutely.
could talk all night.
Absolutely. But we'll keep an eye out for more from y'all, and I'll definitely keep up with your channel, and I'll even when you have stuff come out, I'll share it. We help build it up because I really appreciate what you guys are doing. I mean, that's all I can say because there's not enough people doing it. I think there was one guy, he went on a rant in that small town monsters, and he was exactly right. There's not enough people doing what you do. Just get the information out there, or gather the information and then share it. So
yeah. Well, like I said, thank you so much for having me on. You guys rock, and I love the format, and you got a good thing going, and love to join you guys both again sometime.
all right.
Yeah, and if you're ever in the Southeast and anywhere near the museum, hit me up. I'll take care of your ticket for you.
Okay.
Oh, wait
I
a minute
will be.
now.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Shane. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. You guys have a great evening.
All right.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. I don't even know how to do this here. There we go.
There he goes.
Well, Amanda, I talked too much again. I'm sorry.
It's all good. It's all good. Like I said, and I should probably talk more, but I'm just enjoying sitting back and listening because I was like, "Ooh, that's good. Oh, that's a good point. Oh, that's a good idea or something." So
Well,
yeah, I could go on and ask him questions all night long.
right. If we
He's
had
talking
4
about.
hours, it could be more laid back. Or I don't. If y'all could tell, I was pushing a little bit, and then y'all. Hold on a second.
It looks like we got some trolls.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So anyway, I got one, but yeah. I mean, if we had several hours, or man, if you were out around a fire somewhere, just
Oh
talking,
man, yeah, we could be up until the sun rose up talking back and forth.
Thanks, Hillary. Yeah, you got it's rare to find somebody that if y'all Google his name, they've been everywhere. Those guys I'm sure they've gotten a lot of offers to go and do TV shows or whatever, but they're all about the research,
Mhm.
And hold on. It's like all come in here at the last minute.
I know, right? Somebody in the chat says, "Hey, you made it big time when the trolls start showing up."
Yeah, yeah, I know. If y'all see me, I'm leaning to the right again because of my
Yeah, you've been
my
sitting a
hip.
while. You should probably
Yeah.
go relax a little bit, whatever's most comfortable for you post surgery.
Well, Amanda, I appreciate it, and you're always welcome. I'll always ask you, and it'll take a while to get it going or whatever. And
Mhm.
I'm gonna tell you, do not, and I'll tell you in front of everybody, they know, do not be back. Say, hey, Roger, I got a question. Stop me,
Okay.
because I get to asking questions sometimes, and 30 minutes will go by, and I'm like, I don't even know what we've been doing. But thank y'all. Thank everybody for
Yes,
coming
thanks to
by.
everybody in the chat.
And thanks for the questions. I didn't get to them because I knew we had so much to cover and just a limited amount of time. And he had to go to be with his daughter. And don't want to get in
Well,
the way of that.
while I'm thinking of it, and everybody is all still in the comments. Me and you, Roger, had talked recently about maybe doing a show where it's just me and you, and we'll discuss some of our different favorite shows,
Yeah.
different books, different evidence, things like that. That maybe we could take comment or questions from the comment section and answer that. So y'all chime in and let us know what you think of the idea.
Yeah, we're gonna like maybe we can do it live or we could tape it or whatever. And there's several ideas. It's just hard to do by yourself because I know I'll miss some things, and you've probably seen more than I have. But there's some things that me being older that I probably saw a long time ago, and there are some really cool stuff. There's some stuff from the 60s and 70s that's
Hmm.
that's odd. It's odd because of the quality of the film and all that.
Agreed.
But it reminds me of another one. Where they all come from?
I don't know, man.
But y'all, I'm gonna go ahead and tell the trolls you ain't gonna hurt our feelings.
Nah.
You're not gaining a thing. You're not making anybody mad. Uh, um, but yeah, I gotta do some more. Add some more. Look at them, boy. We just got
Tackle.
this is awesome.
Hey, that's more foot traffic, and that's just more clicks on your
I
part,
know they
Roger.
don't know. They don't know it helps out the algorithm,
I
right?
know, right? It helps out the algorithm. That's why I tell people who leave me bad stuff and dumb comments on my videos. I'm just like, thanks for the interaction.
Yeah. And hey, I handed out a bunch of wrenches, but it looks like some of them are gone. So, but
Yeah.
anyway, all
We'll go ahead
right,
and close it out for tonight, guys. Thank y'all
yeah,
very much.
y'all follow Amanda on TikTok, Amanda the Bigfoot Lady, and how in the world does it get that many of them? That's funny. All right, so
All right.
see y'all later.
Adios, guys.
All right, thank you, Amanda.
You're welcome.
Bye bye.
Bigfoot caught on video.
What the crap?
What was that?
Did you see that?
Yes.
Holy crap.
What the heck was that?
That was on 2 feet, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Thought I was seeing things, actually.
Oh my goodness. Please tell me we got that on audio, video.